I recently shared on Instagram my thought process of what lenses to take on a bird photography trip to Singapore, and I asked you guys, if you were in my shoes, which 2-lens kit would you take? Well, I've now made the trip, had an amazing time, and I want to share with you how it all went. Hey, why are you biting my lens? Hey. This video is brought to you by Paybu, the in-store payment card that instantly credits you back the state sales tax on your order, which for lenses like this can be over $1,000 a piece. It's available exclusively at B&H Photo. You can check it out and all of the current Nikon discounts at the link below. Howdy folks, I just got back from a 48-hour wildlife photography trip to Singapore. I took over 25 kilos of long lenses and cameras and stuff like that. In this video, I'm going to talk you through what worked, what didn't, what I wish I had taken and what I wish I had left at home. But rather than starting out with a gear talk and details of my planning, let's jump straight into the first shoot and then I'll back announce how everything went after each shooting session. Okay, good morning. So I think I'm in the right place. So day one started at the Pasir Ris Mangroves. It's a covered boardwalk over a swampy area on the edge of the ocean, essentially. Singapore's a tiny island after all, which feels like it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's actually beside a water park and a bunch of residential housing. Now I have to say I was in a great mood because this is a personal trip, so the heat, humidity and the heavy gear really wasn't weighing me down, or these little hiccups. I was on a sidetrack mission where what I shoot will just go with the flow and see what I find. Now I had the 800mm f6.3 for a lot of that time. Shooting up into the canopy was great. The f6.3 was challenging because I was starting shooting before sunrise. And the 100 to 400, which was my other lens for that morning session, was great for versatility. I actually took along some extension tubes and was able to get some close-ups of bugs and stuff as I went along. Now, in terms of stabilization, I had taken my smaller Oben monopod with me with the great Pro Media Gear head. To be honest, I wish I had taken my longer one, which is a Pro Media Gear monopod. It gets so much higher, which I thought would be unnecessary, but there were times where if I had been able to put the monopod overhead and use the tilting screen, it would have let me get a better frame than my Oben, which only goes to about this high. So in retrospect, I wish I had taken the bigger one. Other thing, being that it's a boardwalk, I just assumed tripods weren't allowed, but actually people had them out. It was nice and wide. They wouldn't have caused any congestion. So I do wish I had taken along my full-size tripod and gimbal head. Not so much for the stills, because I find with the monopod and a steady hand, I can get reasonable hand-holding shots. But for the video, having something like this is so much more convenient to be able to make a small adjustment. It gets rid of all of those little wobbles that you can avoid between shots. Of course, in stabilization, as you're seeing in the cutaways here, I'm able to get rid of a lot of that, but there were still segments of shots that, you know, my hand holding wasn't that great, or when you go to change a setting and then you find yourself bumping the footage. Next time I would take along the full gimbal setup. Now, as I was out on the pier scanning the trees and looking for kingfishers and woodpeckers, a viewer of the channel actually recognized me, came, said hi, and he circled back a couple of hours later to let me know that a park ranger had spotted a giant owl. So I, and a Japanese tourist who was with us, who was an owl fanatic, all went searching for it. Unfortunately, he had to go to lunch, but we did find it, and it was this giant buffy fish owl, absolutely gorgeous, and it was pretty high up in the trees. It was backlit. I was using the 800mm lens, which meant I was regularly shooting at like ISO 7200 up to 25,600. Still, I love the shots, but not the kind of ISO I want to be at. Okay, so after that first session of shooting, I was out of water, exhausted. I headed back to the hotel and grabbed the 400mm. Now, this is my prize and joy. 400mm f2.8, and its crowning achievement, and I'm a Nikon fanboy, but seriously, this is the best addition to long lenses that anyone has made in the last decade, is the built-in TC. This and the 600 f4 both have it. A 1.4 TC there. You don't have to take your lens off or do anything. You just flick it and it's off or on. So good. Now, this one I was taking back to try and find owls at sunset, which was my initial plan. I actually went back an hour earlier to see if Buffy was still there, and to my surprise, well, at first I was disappointed because she wasn't in the same tree, but it was like 20 feet away on a stump over a small lake or a big pond, and it was like at eye level, close, 400mm I was filling the frame, and then I have 2.8 to play with. Now I'm down at ISOs like below 500. It was so good, and this is gonna sound kind of whimsical, but I spent a full hour there alone with no one else around late in the day as the sun was setting, and I don't want to say mystical, but there was something so beautiful about being in this situation with the wild animal, constantly making eye contact with me, being attacked by other little birds as it's trying to do its hunting. It was beautiful. It was just beautiful. I could have stayed there all night, but I really wanted to go see what else we would find. So I headed back out to that pier that I met the gentleman earlier, hoping to find more owls along there, and actually found more kingfishers and hornbills and all kinds of different stuff, and more monitor lizards and more little otters playing in the waterways, but actually no more owls. I just called my grab and then this snake fell out of the tree beside me. No shit, it just badunk hit the ground. I thought it was a twig. Not fucking around. Now, day two was all about bird paradise, and I'll be honest, a lot of wildlife photographers wouldn't go to shoot at a zoo, and it's not something that I typically do. But it is what first attracted me to want to go to Singapore. They have something like 4,000 species of birds. It's giant aviary. Yes, some of them have tagged feet, which kind of sucks for photos, but it's a conservation area and a huge concentration of birds that I would struggle to see anywhere else. If I were trying to enter photo competitions, then yes, I would want them all in the wild, but I have to say, I'm really glad that I went. Now, for that day, I went with the 70-200 and the 100-400, both on Z8 bodies, both on just my black rapids. I didn't take a monopod for that day. And there were really some spectacular birds. So the 70 to 200 did come in handy for a lot of it when the birds were closer. The 2.8 still lets you get a really nice soft background, and I didn't really struggle with obscuring the net in this place. Most of the time it's hundreds of feet away because it's such a huge enclosure. Now I also went along to the Predators on Wings show, which is like a total Disneyland type event where they have raptors and different things flying around. It was cool to see, but most of the photo opportunities, to be honest, sucked. You've got people in the background and it's in kind of an auditorium. The 100 to 400 was my main choice of lens there to be able to narrow my field of view and get rid of as many people as possible. I got a few decent shots of them in flight, but they're so obviously birds in captivity, so it is what it is. But still fun to get a little bit of variety, and it was cooler and out of the sun, so that was a nice little respite for half an hour. Now, like so many people, I'm enamored with owls, so day one was a huge highlight, but on day two, probably the highlight was the tawny frogmouth. Now, this kind of looks like an owl, but frogmouths are their own species. It's actually a species that's native to Australia and New Zealand, but I've never seen one in the wild at home. So I was thrilled to see one there, and that it was close enough that I could make use of the 70 to 200, fill up the frame, get rid of the crap in the background, get lots of eye contact from it. That was really fantastic. So look, after 48 hours of shooting and thousands of frames, I thought it's worth just sharing some stats with you. So on the, of my keepers, like of my top picks, of which there was a few hundred, the 100 to 400 took 33% of them. So actually the most. The 800mm f6.3 came out to 26%, as I mentioned earlier. The 70 to 200 was 21. And then surprisingly, my favorite lens, the 400 f4, was only 20%. But it's one that I only use for one half of a day, or like 4 hours. Whereas the 800 I used all day on day one, the 100 to 400 I used all day both days, and the 70 to 200 I used all day on day two. So it had the least amount of in-hand time and still got 20% of the frames. And of the number of frames that are perfectly sharp and beautifully exposed, it had by far the highest hit rate. And if you then factor in the number of shots taken to the number of final keepers, the 400 was actually number one. So fantastic lens. But having said that, I still, if I were heading back to a 2-day trip like that again tomorrow, I might even leave that one behind. If I just could take 2 lenses and I could take anything, I think I would actually take the 600 f4 TC, if Nikon were so kind to loan it to me, and then the 70 to 200 for versatility. The 600 that lets you get out to 840 at f5.6, you just can't beat that for birds. The only thing is, for the close-up stuff, it doesn't focus as close as the 400mm. 70 to 200 covers that. You got a big gap in the middle, but I think I could manage with up to 200 and then from 600. If I could take a third lens, then I would probably struggle whether I go for the 400 2.8 for the extra light and to go 200, 400, 600, or if I would go for the 100 to 400 for the flexibility. I don't know. TLDR, if I could just refine what I took, I would probably leave the 800 behind, take the 600 instead, take the bigger monopod, take the tripod and gimbal, leave the binoculars behind, leave the extra action cameras and all of that stuff that I had taken with me, and funnily enough, leave the poncho and wet weather gear that I took. Actually, I probably should still take that, but it was funny that I was in Singapore for 2 full days and didn't have a drop of rain. I thought I would need to be really prepared for that, and finally wasn't. So otherwise, it was such a great trip, and I have to say, I often preach about finding balance and shooting for pleasure and all of these things, and I so rarely actually do. Yes, I'm on the road a lot. Yes, I love my job, but it is work. It's been years since I took a couple of days out just to shoot personally, and even then I was filming thinking that I would make a YouTube video out of it. So I think I'm gonna go back, not necessarily to Singapore, but I'm gonna try to do little trips like this pretty regularly, balance out my work lifestyle, and there's few things that I enjoy more than being in the quiet of nature with a gigantic piece of glass, looking eye to eye with some nature. It's really special and becoming one of my favorite things to shoot. If you're a bird photographer, a long lens shooter, I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions of variations to the kit or locations that I really should check out. Whilst I've been a professional for 15 plus years, I'm relatively new to this area of photography, so I'm happy to learn and hear what you all have to share. If you haven't already, please do check out the Nikon setup guide that's listed out below, as well as the new home for the members only library. Thanks, I'll see you guys soon.